He called it practical. I called it my life, and the porch light heard the line I drew. The bulb hummed like a quiet witness, the kind that does not take sides, only remembers. I stood on my own steps with a paper plate in my hand and a name on every bill. My son turned 29 that afternoon. He laughed with his friends in my backyard and told me, kindly and confidently, that the best gift I could give him was to step aside. Practical, he said. Efficient. He had a plan and a voice that wanted to manage things. I have worked most of my years with wood and paper. Wood tells you the truth if you measure twice. Paper tells you the truth when people forget their manners. I keep both close. The house still keeps Mary's lemon oil in the air. The porch boards creak where she stood to water the azaleas. On nights like this, I let the house teach me what to do. Be steady, be clear, and let the rules hold when tempers cannot. Jacob meant well. Most people do until they don't. He had friends from the gym and one from his office who speaks in bullet points. They brought folding chairs and sharp opinions. They talked about maximizing space and minimizing elder risk, like I was a cabinet to be moved without opening the drawers. I set the cake on the patio table and listened. Listening is not surrender. Listening is how you find the studs behind the drywall. Then sink the screws where they will hold. Laura smiled like peacemakers do when they want control dressed as kindness. She handed me a slice and used the tone I have heard at banks. We're just trying to be practical, she said. Streamline decisions, reduce stress. You shouldn't worry about the house anymore. I have learned to answer soft when the room gets loud. I told her I would not worry about the house. I would take care of it, as I always have, with paper and quiet steps. After cake, the conversation drifted toward decisions that were not theirs. They spoke about moving furniture, changing locks, listing the truck I still drive for better cash flow. Jacob took my old watch off the mantel, the one Mary bought in Richmond before our son could spell his name, and tried it on like a costume. It hung loose on his wrist. He grinned at his friends. Legacy, he said, and the word sounded like a coupon he could redeem at any counter. I cleaned plates in the kitchen and looked at the window where the porch light glowed. In the drawer beside the sink sits a small notebook. On the cover is a sticker Mary placed there years ago. Measure twice. I opened it and wrote 2 clear lines. House title, Thomas Hale. Auto debit, Thomas Hale. No co-owners, no secondary signers. It settled the dust in my head. Then I washed the knife and dried it with the towel Mary liked for its blue stripe. When I stepped back outside, they had moved from suggestions to announcements. We'll get the guest room cleared tomorrow, the office friend said. Storage pod is cheap for a month. Jacob can manage your medications, too. Fewer loose ends. I was careful with my voice. I appreciate the concern, I said. But this is my home. I have a system that works. Paper keeps the peace. He smiled in that efficient way, like he wanted to show me a graph. I let the evening finish itself. People left with casual hugs. Jacob stayed on the patio with Laura, scrolling his phone and planning schedules that did not belong to him. I collected the plastic forks and stacked the chairs. When the yard was quiet, I told them good night and stepped to the truck. The glove box clicked open with the same little sound it has made for 15 years. Inside is a manila folder that fits my hand the way a good tool does. Titles. Receipts. The HOA covenants. Mary underlined in 2011 with a pencil that still leaves a soft gray line. I checked the deed. Then the letter from the bank confirming the mortgage was paid 8 summers ago. Paper calms rooms that words cannot. Peter waved from his porch across the street. He is a man who knows a boundary without writing it down. He asked the question you ask when you see a storm building. You good? I nodded. Good enough, I said. I'll let the rules answer. He smiled, which is what a neighbor does when he hears a plan that will hold. Inside, I set the manila folder on the kitchen table under the lamp with the green shade. Mary called it the library light. I poured a glass of water and read the HOA notice about gatherings and noise after 10. It is a polite paragraph. It has no anger in it at all. That is what I wanted in my house. Not anger, only order, and the quiet strength that follows. Around 9, the patio door slid open without a knock. Jacob came in with the confidence of someone who had been applauded too early. Dad, he said, I've been thinking. The best next step is for you to stay at Laura's parents' for a while. Less strain on you. We'll handle utilities and get the place ready for sale in spring. He was standing in my kitchen with his hands on the back of Mary's chair. There are moments when you can feel the grain of time in your palm. If you squeeze, it will splinter. If you set it down, the piece will stay whole. I will not be moving, I said. Not tonight. Not for spring. This is my home. I didn't raise my voice. That is a promise I made to myself the day Mary died. The house would not hear shouting. It would hear steps, papers, and the ordinary sounds of a life that still has dignity. He laughed, the way a young man laughs when he thinks love makes him right. You're being stubborn, he said. It's your birthday, and you're making this difficult. I watched his hands. They were restless. Restless hands make mistakes. I folded mine on the table and looked at the lamp's green light on the deed. You are my son, I said. I love you, and you are crossing a line. Laura touched his arm and used that bank voice again. We want to streamline, she said. You don't need all this paperwork stress. I glanced at the folder. Paper is not stress, I said. Paper is peace. I stood and slid the deed into a new envelope. I wrote my name on the front in blue ink, then placed it flat. This is my house. We will keep our voices low. We will not move my property without my permission. If that is difficult, we can pause this conversation. He rolled his eyes. Laura sighed. The sigh told me listing agents had already been discussed. It told me my quiet had been mistaken for weakness. That happens to soft voices. People think the stillness means surrender. It does not. It means choosing the strongest beam in the structure and trusting it to carry the span. I asked them to walk with me to the porch. The night air was honest. The porch light hummed. Peter's television glowed across the street, a blue square with a baseball game. I set my hands on the rail that I sanded last fall and spoke slow. Son, I will not argue, I said. I will state what is true. This is my property. My name is on every line. You are a guest when you visit. Guests keep the peace or they go home. He flinched, then laughed again, but softer. You can't kick me out, he said. I'm your son. I nodded. Yes, I said, and I am your father. Being my son does not give you the right to manage my life. Love is not management. Respect is not optional. We can talk tomorrow, calmly, or we can stop now. He stepped forward like a man warming up to a fight he does not want to start. Laura spoke before he did. "We're trying to help," she said. "Everyone says it's best to make practical changes after a loss." I kept my eyes on the porch light. "Practical," I said, "is a word that can do harm when it forgets dignity. If you really want to help, lower your voice and stand beside me. If you want to manage me, you can try it from your car." Peter's porch light clicked on. He did not come over. He's a good neighbor and understands a line better than most. I leaned on the rail and gave my son the only clear choice that is kind. "We're done for tonight," I said. "You may stay for 10 minutes and say goodnight politely, or you may go now and call me tomorrow after 10. If you refuse both, I will ask the HOA manager to document the disturbance, and I will call for assistance. I don't wish to do that." He called me dramatic. That was a word he chose, which told me he wasn't listening. Dramatic people enjoy noise. I am not dramatic. I am a man who files receipts and sands rails. The porch boards remember my weight and do not complain. I told him again that we were finished and looked down the street where the stop sign stands under the oak. He raised his voice. Laura told him to stop. He did not. He called me stubborn and ungrateful. He said I should be thankful for their planning. He said he would be back in the morning with movers. I let him speak until the echoes felt tired. Then I stepped inside, took the HOA covenants from the folder, and read the sentence that matters when people forget how to act. Quiet hours begin at 10. Disturbances will be addressed with documentation and, if necessary, enforcement by appropriate authorities. I returned to the porch and held the paper low so only he could see. "I won't argue with you," I said. "I will follow the rules that keep this street peaceful. You may choose peace with me, or you may choose a conversation with someone who wears a badge. I prefer peace." His face changed, not into understanding, but into the look men wear when their reflection no longer claps. He took Laura's hand. She whispered something I could not hear. They walked to their car. The engine turned, then cut off. He got out again, pride louder than the law in his head. "You can't do this," he said. "You can't just—" He let the sentence trail. I gave him a last choice, as even carpenters give a bent nail one more chance before pulling it out. 10 minutes, I said. "Good night and respect, or go now." They left with the sound of pebbles under tires. The night sighed. I breathed. The house took a breath with me. I went inside and wrote the time in my notebook. 9:47 p.m. I added 3 words Mary used when our boy was small and throwing plastic blocks at the wall. Natural consequences apply. I underlined it once and closed the notebook. I washed 2 plates, dried them, and put them away. I checked the back door and slid the lock. The television stayed dark. Silence is a kind of plaster. It seals cracks no argument can reach. I turned off the kitchen light and let the porch lamp be the only star on our small piece of earth. Then I set the folder in the glove box again, because that is where it belongs when the night is finished and morning might need proof. Morning came polite. Sun in the sink. Mail in the box. A polite flyer about the church rummage sale with a note to bring clean items, and label them clearly. I poured coffee and read every line. Clarity helps strangers be kind to each other. I called the HOA office and left a courteous message. This is Thomas Hale at Maple Ridge. Brief disturbance last night. No action needed now. Would appreciate documentation on file. The woman on the recording had a careful voice. I thanked her before the beep. At 10:15, Jacob texted a schedule for movers and a link to a storage pod. I stared at the screen until the letters felt like sawdust. Then I typed a sentence that would keep the beam true. No movers. Do not schedule anything at my address. We will talk at 6 on the porch. Calm voices only. He sent back the same word he likes. Practical. I set the phone face down and let it be quiet. I took the deed out again and studied the ink like a map. Then I wrote a list for the 6 o'clock talk. The kind of list that saves everyone from saying what they will regret. 1. This is my house. 2. We will not move my property without permission. 3. We will not change locks, utilities, or mail. 4. We will speak in low voices. 5. We will end the talk if voices rise. 6. If lines are crossed, I will request assistance. At 6, the porch light hummed again. Peter watered his ferns with the careful attention of a man who believes in small rituals. Jacob arrived with Laura and the office friend. That told me we would need the list. I held it like a pastor holds a liturgy, not to start a fight, but to give the moment a shape. Before we begin, I said, we will agree to rules. If you agree, we speak. If you do not, we end this here. The office friend opened his mouth. I raised a finger. Low voices, I said. Short sentences. Respect on my steps. He smiled his graff smile. We're here to help. I nodded. Then help by listening. I read the 6 lines as the porch light hummed, and the evening settled like a hand on a restless shoulder. When I finished, I asked the only question that mattered in that minute. Do you agree to these boundaries? Jacob nodded first. Laura followed, her eyes careful. The office friend waited a half beat, then gave a thumbs up like a man who had never held a boundary that wasn't laminated. I set the list on the rail. Good, I said. Then here is the first line that will not bend. No movers. No storage pods. No decisions about my property without my consent. I kept my voice level. The night stayed kind. The office friend coughed into his fist. With respect, he said, your capacity is changing. We can optimize your environment. Adults with declining... I raised my hand, not high. Just enough to set a post in the ground. We agreed to low voices, I said. We did not agree to insults dressed as metrics. My capacity is fine. My grief is not your lever. Peter's hose clicked off across the street. The evening listened. Jacob looked away and exhaled through his nose, the way boys do when they want the ground to agree with them. Okay, he said. No movers today. But, Dad, we are handling the sale in spring. Laura found a realtor who can get top dollar. It's time. He said we, as if the pronoun could sign documents. I folded the list once and slipped it into my breast pocket. There is no we on the deed, I said. There's me. If I ever decide to sell, I will choose the timing and the agent. Until then, you will visit as a son and leave as a guest. He winced. Then he did the thing pride does when a plan meets a wall. He tried to climb it by force. I live here as much as you do, he said. I'm here all the time. We've been helping you. I shook my head. Visiting is not living. Help is not management. Love does not cancel permission. I let a beat pass. The porch light hummed. Do you agree to the boundary? I asked. If you do, we can share coffee at the table. If you do not, this talk is finished. For a moment, I saw the child he had been fade in and out behind the man he wanted to be. It is not easy to say yes to a line that stops you. He opened and closed his hands. Laura's thumb brushed his sleeve. He finally nodded, but his mouth did not. Fine, he said. Boundaries. Coffee. We drank without sugar. Words are sweet enough when they behave. For 2 days, the house returned to its ordinary habits. Mail at noon. Baseball in the late afternoon. Peter's grandson rode a bike that squeaked and then did not squeak after Peter set a wrench to the bolt. On the 3rd day, while I clipped the hedges, a stranger parked crooked in front of my mailbox. He stepped out with a branded polo and a clipboard. Storage Express, he said. We're delivering a pod for this address. Afternoon slot. He tapped the paper like a man knocking on a door he had already opened. I set the clippers down carefully. No pod, I said. Return it. He pointed at his sheet. It's paid, he said. Jacob arranged it. I thought of the list in my pocket and the 6 lines that save good families from uglier weather. Please cancel the order, I said. You do not have permission to place anything on my property. He shrugged. We'll need a signature to cancel. Is Jacob inside? I shook my head. You don't need Jacob. You have me. I showed my driver's license and the street number on the mailbox. He radioed someone. Then he sighed the sigh of workers who know they are delivering a boss's mistake. All right, he said. We'll move on. At 6, Jacob arrived hot with offense. Why did you cancel the pod? He said. You're making this impossible. I wiped my hands on a towel and guided him to the porch. I canceled it because it violated our agreement, I said. You crossed a line you agreed to respect. He paced. Laura hovered. The office friend marched up the walk with a new graph in his pocket. We're going to streamline tonight, he said, and tried the handle on the back door as if a chart could turn a lock. Stop, I said, even and low. You will not enter my house. He smiled like men smile at rules they intend to bend. We'll only tag items for the sale, he said. He stepped forward. I set 1 foot on the threshold and rested my palm on the jamb. This is trespassing, I said. Do not step inside. He laughed, but it was a weak sound. Then he tried to pass. The porch watched him decide to be foolish. I could have argued. I did not. I removed the list and read line 6, the way a bell is rung at the right hour. If lines are crossed, I said, I will request assistance. I picked up the phone. The call took 90 seconds. I gave my name, my address, and the simple sentence that carries no malice at all. A guest refuses to leave and is attempting to enter without permission, I said. Please send an officer. I ended the call and waited. The officer who arrived had a tidy haircut and a voice trained for storms. He listened to both sides without tilting. He asked one question that put the whole matter on rails. Whose name is on the deed? I showed him the paper. He nodded. He turned to Jacob and the friend. This is private property, he said. You are guests. Your father has asked you to leave for the evening. You will do so. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Authority wears a quiet coat. The office friend argued with silly confidence. He called the situation unsafe for the elder and tried to produce a stack of printouts. The officer looked at him the way carpenters look at bent nails. Enough, he said. If you refuse a lawful request to leave, I will document and escalate. The friend left first, his steps making noise to cover the back pedal. Laura apologized in a whisper. Jacob hesitated on the porch with that old child flicker in his eyes. Dad, he said, you don't have to do this. I touched his shoulder with 2 fingers. I know, I said. I choose to. They left. The officer wrote a short note on a card and handed it to me. Call if you need us again, he said. His car left the light on the street looking cleaner than before. I stood under the porch lamp and let the quiet lay itself down over the boards. Then I went inside, wrote the time in the notebook, and added 2 words Mary loved. Boundaries hold. That night I slept as if a hand larger than mine had smoothed the sheet. In the morning, I made a list inside a different notebook, the one labeled practical in capital letters because the word belongs to houses, not to control. 14 days, I wrote. That is how long a stubborn storm can take to pass if the wind is given the right direction. I called a real estate agent I trust from the church rummage sale. I told her I wanted a quiet sale, clean and quick, contingent on one simple comfort. I would choose a close date that kept the peace. She walked the house at noon and did not step where the floor squeaks. She saw the workbench, the neat files, and the chairs that remember a gentle woman's laugh. We can do this softly, she said. No signs. Qualified buyer list. 2 showings. Calm timelines. I nodded. Soft is the only way, I said. I am not exiting a life. I'm changing a view. On the 3rd day, while Jacob cooled down and discovered that silence from me is not a negotiation tactic, an offer arrived that respected everything I asked. The buyer was a quiet family who liked the maple in the yard. They wished to keep the porch light. I asked for a 2-week close and access for me until the last morning. They agreed. Paper moved between desks without a ripple. On the 4th day, Jacob returned with softer eyes and hands kept on his own pockets. He stepped to the porch and did not pass the threshold. I was out of line, he said. The sentence cost him effort, and effort is a kind of gift. I nodded. Thank you, I said. We can talk here. I told him the truth without decoration. I'm selling the house, I said. The decision is mine. The buyer is kind. I will be nearby for a while. You will receive a letter from me the day the keys change hands. He went pale. You're selling while we were fighting? He asked. I am selling while I am living, I said. The fight had nothing to do with it. The boundary did. He tried to argue. He stopped. He looked at the maple, at the rail I sanded, at the light that had hummed through his childhood. Where will you go? He asked. For a while, I said. To Peter's spare room. Then perhaps to a smaller place that smells like lemon oil and fresh notebooks. I will tell you the address when the paper dries. He swallowed and nodded. He said he wanted to help pack. Thank you, I said, but I will handle my things myself. You may visit. You may not manage. The next days were ordinary work. Boxes labeled with dates and rooms. Receipts taped to lids. Peter's grandson carried 2 light cartons and felt like a man. We ate sandwiches on the porch with the light off. because some evenings earn their own gentleness without a lamp telling them what to do. Laura brought soup and apologies. I accepted both. On the 12th day, the buyer's inspector tapped pipes and smiled at tidy shut-off valves. On the 13th, we signed. On the 14th morning, I walked each room like you do when a dear friend moves to a new city. I thanked the corners for holding our laughter. I slid one envelope under the hall closet floorboard, where the trim is loose by design. It held copies of measurements with notes for the next owner, because a house appreciates a little history that knows when to whisper. At noon, the buyer stood with the keys, and a welcome that did not crowd me. I left a second envelope on the mantel with a message to be delivered to my son at 6. It was not a punishment. It was a bridge. It said what I could not say while emotions were loud. The buyer promised to hand it to him politely. At 6, Jacob arrived and knocked on a door that was no longer mine. The buyer greeted him kindly and gave him the envelope. He opened it on the porch steps where he had once played with blocks that refused to stack. The letter was 3 paragraphs and a list, because lists have saved us before. Son, it began, this house taught us both to stand up straight. The first paragraph told him what I had done and why: dignity, peace, and the difference between help and control. The second gave him what he had asked for, without the part that harms. I will help you 1 night and 1 step, it said. 1 night at a motel on my card. 1 step to an orientation at the warehouse on Broad Street at 9. If you take the step, I will take the next with you. If you refuse, I will be on call, not on payroll. The third paragraph told him where to meet me for coffee in the morning. I ended it with Mary's favorite sentence for restless hearts. Steady is a kind of love. Peter told me later that Jacob sat very still for a long time. Stillness has its own kind of weather. At 8, my phone buzzed with a short message. Which motel? I sent the name and the address. Check in under your name at 9, I wrote. Orientation at 9 tomorrow. I will not remind you. He replied with 1 word he finally learned to use gently. Okay. I slept at Peter's that night. His guest room smells like cedar and clean sheets. In the morning, I drove to the cafe on Main, ordered 2 coffees, and sat where I could see the door. Jacob arrived on time, wearing the shirt Mary bought him for his first real interview, the one he said was too plain. He looked tired and shy in a way that fits a man better than swagger ever did. We drank without hurry. We did not revisit the storm. We looked at the map of the day and pointed to the road that stayed paved. He asked for advice. I gave him the only kind that helps without harming. Show up, I said. Be kind. Carry boxes like they are your name. He nodded. He asked if I would come to orientation. No, I said, but I will be in the parking lot for a handshake after. His mouth shook the smallest amount. He stood, then sat again. I'm sorry, he said. I put my hand on the table. He set his on top of mine for a heartbeat, like a man testing a new step. He went. I waited in the truck with the window down and the radio off. He walked out an hour later with a paper telling him when to return and what to wear. He looked like a person who earned that paper. He showed it to me without speech. I read the lines and handed it back. Good, I said. Lunch is on me if you want it. He smiled with just his eyes. Another coffee is enough, he said. We took a short walk under the old theater sign and did not hurry what was quietly mending. That afternoon, I bought a small notebook that fits a smaller pocket. On the first page, I wrote the sentence that keeps my feet honest. On call, not on payroll. On the second, I wrote another that belongs to both of us now. Natural consequences, applied gently. I tore out a third page and wrote one more line for my son. Steady is a kind of love. I folded it and slipped it into his palm before he left for the motel. He did not let go right away. Then he did, and the day held. I do not know everything that will happen next. No father does, no matter how many lists he keeps or rails he sands. I know this. The porch light from my old house will shine on a different family now, and that is not a loss. That is a kindness completing its work. I know that a motel room can be a starting line when pride takes a breath and looks at the truth without blinking. I know that rules, like good lumber, hold when the season changes. In the evenings now, I sit on Peter's porch with the radio low and the air smelling like cut grass. Jacob texts small messages that use important words without shouting. Orientation done, he wrote on day 2. Start Monday, he wrote on day 4. On day 5, he sent no texts, and the quiet did not scare me. It felt like a boy discovering that he can carry his own weight across a room that does not tilt. Sometimes I drive past the maple and see the new owners watering the roots. I do not stop. The house is telling them its own stories now. I thank it under my breath as I pass, the way you thank a bridge after it holds. At night, I turn on a different porch light that hums in a new key. I open my notebook and write the date and one clear sentence. Dignity kept. Hope intact. And then I close it and let the quiet finish the line.